This is Donna Byrne, and this is part 2 of our final set of videos. We'll be talking mostly about who we should pick as an executor or a trustee, and also about the appropriate level of damages. Here we go. We're going to talk about estate of Rothko. Now, Mark Rothko had an estate made up of many paintings, all of which he had painted himself. He was an artist. Can you imagine having 798 paintings? Moreover, Rothko paintings were large. Really large. He said that he knows, usually that a large painting would be intended to be grandiose and pompous, but for him, it was intimate, right? When you stood next to these paintings, you almost felt like you were in them. You can see these in New York City. It's very big, and they're sort of emotional. And you can see the bright colors he used around when I was born. Okay. But towards the end of his career, things didn't go so well for Mark Rothko. He became depressed. He was alcoholic. He was hospitalized. He couldn't paint for a while, and his palette changed. So here's one that he painted a year before he died. Oh, don't need me there. There we go. He died by killing himself. Okay, so before he died, though, he actually did do some estate planning, and here's more about him. He was kind of picky. He really cared how his paintings were displayed. He had even painted some paintings for a commission and then refused to hand them over because the Four Seasons restaurant wasn't a good enough place to show them. So who would make a good executor for an estate like this? We've got Mark Rothko, the sensitive, troubled artist. How about another artist? He understands the art side of Mark Rothko. This is Theodoros Stamos, kind of in his younger days. He was also an abstract impressionist artist. He probably understands Mark Rothko's artistic sensibilities. Mark had kids. He needed someone he could trust with his kids. He chose another good friend, Morton Levine. Morton Levine was an anthropology professor. He was someone that Mark Rothko trusted enough to appoint him as guardian of his minor children. So we've got two friends. We've got a good start here, but we don't really have anybody with legal or financial knowledge who could help sell the estate assets. So, we need all of these things. We need somebody we trust. We need somebody the family can trust. We need somebody who can deal with the financial aspects. And that's something that particularly that artists apparently don't like. In addition, we are going to sell all these paintings because Rothko's sure not going to leave them to his wife. They're battling. His daughter has said she doesn't like his paintings. So he's going to leave the art to a foundation or leave the money to a foundation. So the accountant seems like a good choice. Now, moreover, Bernard Rees, he's not just any old accountant. He's an accountant with art connections. He loves the art world. He likes artists. He likes being accepted. He's a millionaire. So he doesn't really need the money. It's not about that. It's about being part of this world. And he's Mark Rothko's close friend. He even drafted the will. And he's got gallery connections. So he seems like a good choice. They all seem like good choices. They cover the bases. Family, art, business. But it didn't work out well. Right? They screwed up. Now, Rees had a conflict of interest because he was kind of a shadow director of this gallery, Marlborough Gallery. Stamos, another artist, was showing his art elsewhere, but he was convinced to come and show his art at Marlborough Gallery, so that worked out well for him too. And Levine let the artists make the decisions about the art, and he didn't complain enough, even when he may have thought this wasn't right. Nevertheless, on the whole, it seems like these guys thought they were doing a good thing. They were not bad people. Do we want this? Do you want to put your friends in this position? Moreover, if we're talking about a small community like the art world, how would you avoid conflicts? Everybody's got a conflict. Art's a small world, Michael. From the Thomas Crown Affair. How could we protect our executors and our trustees? right? Especially if we're going to put them into a position of conflict. And it's hard to imagine a situation where you won't, right? If you're the child in your family who's going to be the executor, right? We saw what happened to Karen back in the Hines case, right? When she bought the house from the estate. This is really a problem. Well, there wasn't any protection for these guys, and this was an absolute scandal. There's the headline from the New York Times, calls it a betrayal the art world can't forget. So, given that we've got executors who messed up, and given that we have somebody who cares how much money's in the estate, now the kids are entitled to part of the estate under New York law, even though Mark Rothko didn't leave them anything in his will. How do we make the estate whole? Right? The executors sold the paintings for too little money. Could we return the paintings? That would put the estate back where it would be if they hadn't sold them. Well, we can't do that because they were sold to bona fide purchasers, but maybe we could return that much value to the estate. Could we put the estate in the same position it would be if it had sold the paintings for the right amount of money? Right, that's actually a lower dollar figure because the paintings are increasing in value. But if they had sold them for the right price, then that, any increase in value would have been outside of the estate anyway. Okay, so the first one, if the low price is the only problem, the court says, then the damages ought to be the real value of the paintings at the time of sale minus what they actually got. So in other words, we go back and we put the estate in the same position as if the executors had sold for the right price. On the other hand, if there was some other wrongdoing, such as no right to sell the paintings, or such as a conflict of interest, then the damages are the value of the paintings right now minus the money we actually got for them. And so in my example here, if the paintings are now worth $35 million, but they were sold for only $26 million, then the damages is $9 million. Okay, the court calls this appreciation damages. It restores the appreciation in value in the paintings to the estate. Excuse me. Okay, so in this case, Reese and Stamos, who had the conflicts, were liable for appreciation damages. And Levine, who didn't have a conflict, didn't really do anything wrong, was just held for the lower actual value at sale. In their case, that was $9-some million, and in his case, it was $6-some million. This was a disaster. It ruined all three of these guys. Stamos lost his house, pretty much lost his career. No galleries wanted to show his paintings after this scandal. Levine lost his job, he lost his marriage, and he died just a couple years later in 1981. Reese had a stroke. He died in 1978. His assets seem to have disappeared. So this scandal pretty much wrecked them. This is not what we want for our executors. So what do we take away from this? Well, do pay attention to the two kinds of damages. Know the difference between appreciation damages and date of sale damages. But take a look at this bigger picture and think really carefully about what qualities we want in an executor, what expertise we want in an executor, who's going to be faced with a conflict, and how can we protect them? These were not bad people. Bernard Reese, who had the most conflict of anybody, wasn't in it for the money. Remember that. He wasn't in it for the money. He was a good man. He had a friend whose wife was diagnosed with cancer and had always wanted to go to Europe, so he paid for a trip to Europe for their whole family. That's the kind of guy he was. And we forget that. We get wrapped up in the legal issues. Think about what position you're putting the people in who are going to be left. Okay, that's the end of this section. And so I'll stop this video, and there's one more coming. Thanks for watching.